Well, let's unpick more of this and speak to Rob Geist Pinfold, a lecturer in international security at King's College London, also a research fellow at Peace Research Centre, Prague, and join us live from London. Thank you very much for your time. What do you think is happening here? Because there's clearly a power vacuum and chaos, not just when it comes to food, but also, as we heard there, people's personal security. What do you think Israel's strategy has been here?
Well, it used to look like this chaos in the Gaza Strip was the product of Israel not having a day after plan in Gaza, not really knowing what it was doing, and therefore the military is kind of just floundering around. It doesn't know whether it should be responsible for the welfare of the citizens of Gaza, for example, or whether it should leave that to someone else. But then obviously you had Israel blocking anyone else from coming in. But it's increasingly looking like, and I think it's fair to say that this is now evident, this chaos is not the result of a lack of a day after plan. It is part of the day after plan, which is a grander strategy to make Gaza unlivable in the long term. And that has several components. You have, for example, the gangs, the armed gangs that Israel is arming, people like Yasser Abu Shabab and his people, but also others like Rami Helis. The point here, Israel says, is to provide a counterweight to Hamas and to bring order to chaos. But those gangs don't bring order to chaos. They thrive off the chaos. These are criminal gangs. Many of them were in prison before October the 7th for drug offences, for example, not for being political dissidents or what have you. They are thugs. They rob Palestinians in the street. They don't just rob and extort aid. They rob and extort Gazans as well. And they feed off and contribute to the chaos and the disorder. And then on the other hand, you have the aid program, like the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Again, Israel's aims here, purported aims, are to stop Hamas from looting the aid and stop anyone else from looting the aid. The problem here is that Israel has not produced any evidence that Hamas is looting the aid. We know it's the gangs that Israel is arming and equipping that are looting the aid, and it's those same gangs that are now working at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites, and those gangs who get first dibs on the aid before anyone else and then go and sell it on. So if that's the point, if you listen to Israel's logic and you think, okay, that's the point of this and it's not working, that's one thing. But I actually think this is working very well, because Israel's undeclared aims here are to create chaos to the extent that Gaza becomes unlivable. And unfortunately, that is so far proving to be a very successful strategy.
I mean, as you said there, that Israel is arming these gangs. In June, in fact, Israel's prime minister admitted arming Palestinian clans in Gaza, with one particular group, as you said, they're being described as a criminal gang, rather, that opposes Hamas. But what's the ultimate goal here? Because Israel's pretext of continuing this war is to end Hamas. So is this not just about who governs Gaza later on, but is this about a continued Israeli occupation of trying to create divide, basically, and conquer?
Well, you said something really interesting there, Sarah. You said that, Netanyahu said he's arming clans in Gaza, and that is indeed what he said, because that was the request from voices within the Israeli security community, that Israel create a viable counterweight to Hamas. The problem here is that Israel is not arming clans. Israel is arming gangs. Many of these people, like Abu Shabab and Rami Helis, are outcasts from their clans. Their own clans have disavowed them and said, we want nothing to do with these people. So they're not arming clans, they're actually arming various disparate groups of outcasts from all of Gaza's clans, whom the clans want nothing to do with. And that, I think, hints to you at what Israel is trying to do here. It is basically chosen the least popular people in Gaza to arm and equip. It's not trying to create a viable political alternative to Hamas. It's identifying people who thrive off chaos and encouraging them to further that chaos. And I think, as I say, unfortunately, that's working very well at the moment.
And speaking, Mr. Pinfold, of chaos, obviously you mentioned there the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, also known as GHF. They were brought in by Israel under the guise of the UN allowing Hamas to loot the food. That looting is still happening under GHF, and even worse, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed since May, with the majority of aid being intercepted either by hungry Palestinians, desperate, or these armed gangs. Now, Palestinians are saying that this is dehumanizing. How would you describe this situation now?
I would describe the situation as a very clear and unfortunately so far successfully implemented attempt at ethnic cleansing. What we are seeing here is Israel deliberately employing starvation as a weapon of war, deliberately arming criminal thugs as a weapon of war. The entire goal here, as I say, being to create chaos that makes Gaza unlivable because Palestinians in Gaza feel unsafe. They feel that they're hungry. They're going to bed hungry, not eating for days. And this was always a cramped territory. We now have a situation where at least 60% of the population are living in less than 20% of the territory. So this is a recipe for chaos. But as we heard from your correspondents on the ground before, this is all designed chaos. There is a method to this madness. And the clear aim here is to depopulate Gaza. You see where the Palestinians are concentrated along the border with Egypt. So I think Israel doesn't know where the Palestinians are going to go. It doesn't know when they're going to leave. It doesn't want to physically push them out itself. But if they, for example, spill over into the Sinai, then in Israel's mind, it's job done. Gaza is being depopulated. If they then leave or go to third countries rather than going to Sinai, again, it's job done for Israel. So what Israel is trying to do here is to make sure that no one wants to stay in Gaza. This is something that, Palestinians, many of the Palestinians in Gaza are not indigenous to Gaza originally. Many of them are refugees that have been expelled in 1948, for example. So Gaza is already a refugee hub, and Israel is trying to depopulate that refugee hub by sending them elsewhere.
As you said there, most of those areas that we see in Gaza, like Al-Mawasi, are refugee camps that have been the case for decades. Thank you very much, Rob Geist Pinfold, for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.